2024 couldn't come sooner, and while there are still 6 races left in 2023 and a couple of records to be broken from Verstappen and Red Bull, as well as some interesting fights for P2 and P4 in the Constructors' Championship, the main focus is on the championship fight for the upcoming season. While it's believed that Red Bull would continue the domination and they wouldn't even blink in terms of performance slump, it seems like McLaren's strides achieved in 2023, along with Mercedes' promises for 2024, are something that definitely have the potential to put Red Bull in some serious trouble. This is something that not only Red Bull's boss, but also Andrea Stella has agreed with, sending a chilling warning to the Austrian squad for 2024, and also a massive update on what we should expect from his team's competitiveness once the season restarts in Bahrain. The 2022 regulations saw Red Bull enter an era of utter dominance for 2 consecutive years, and while it was strange that no other rival was able to come nearly as close as the pace of the RB19, this might change in 2024, 2 years before everybody expected a massive shake-up of the grid in 2026. Apart from Red Bull and McLaren, 2 of the most obvious teams to be fighting up in the front, it seems like Mercedes, the team that did indeed drop the ball in 2023 and had an up and down season for the majority of the calendar, is going to join these 2 in having a proper fight for both of the championships. I know what you're going to say right away. Mercedes are already the second place team in 2023 and they have a 20-point lead over Ferrari. But if we're going to follow the trends of upgrades, such as the one of McLaren, where they brought a couple of upgrades in Austria and Silverstone and managed to gain 1 second of performance, then Mercedes' improvement with their new design is definitely nowhere near comparable with their customer company. Aston Martin have also made massive strides in the winter break period, a scenario on which Mercedes is going to bet heavily on for the upcoming season. But the Silver Arrows have introduced heavy upgrade packages that involved a change of the car concept as well as the way the W14 performs, and still they weren't able to get anywhere near as close to Red Bull. As a matter of fact, they've become the 4th fastest team in most of the races in the second half of the season, and it's safe to say that most of their focus is now on 2024, something that we'll talk about later in the video. Regardless, McLaren has provided the team with a lot of hope that even though the season can be heavily dominated by one team, performance can be found in such a strictly regulated era if you know how to copy the most successful team on the grid with your own iteration of the technical rules. This is one of the main reasons why Stella believes that Mercedes could be back in the fight much sooner than everybody has tipped 2025. And as all things stand, Hamilton will have a proper shot at the 8th record-breaking championship in 2024 if he manages to get on top with his intra-team battle with Russell, one he's currently heavily winning with a 75-point difference in the Drivers' Championship. It's safe to say that you can never write Mercedes off, even when they're at their lowest. And quite frankly, ever since they entered the sport in 2010, I don't think that they've seen such a difficult season like the one they're experiencing at the moment, even though they're still holding on to the 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship and are likely to lose it to Ferrari if they continue with this momentum, a scenario that happened in 2022 as well. But this might be the first season in quite some time that Mercedes will finish without a race win, as they only have 6 venues to continue their impressive record of winning at least 1 race in a season. Still, it's not something that bugs Mercedes' minds very much, as they've clearly put their focus on next year. With not many technical changes coming in the upcoming season, it seems like Mercedes understood what needs to be done with the car, and Hamilton has vowed to personally go to Brackley to witness the implementation of his feedback onto the car. Furthermore, he's going to test the W15 very early in the season in a bid to try and fix any issues before the season starts, because 2023 was poised to be a failed season, as the team has labelled it after the first race of the season in Bahrain. All of this made their rivals Red Bull and McLaren believe that Mercedes will come for them in 2024, a scenario that, while would definitely please all of the F1 fans, definitely spells bad news for the rest of the grid. Andrew Chauvelin delivered a strong promise that the car is going to look vastly different compared to what it does now, which is in and out a promise that we can't take for granted, because the car already changed looks in 2023 and it didn't really add that much of a performance to the car. The rear downforce struggles continued to be be the team's #1 foe. Christian Horner was the first one to have raised his concerns about Mercedes being very competitive in 2024, and his voice was echoed by Andrea Stella, McLaren's team principal, as the Austrian team's leader has stated earlier this season, "For me, sport is about rivalry. It's great to have rivalry. There has to be respect, but sport isn't sport without rivalry." Obviously, we haven't seen much of him in the last couple of years, but I'm sure he's plotting. I'm sure he's got something they're working on. They are a great team with great drivers, and they'll be looking to fight back. But statements like this from Horner were to be expected, because he also said that he's not missing the competitiveness from 2021 one single bit. However, after being on top for 4 consecutive seasons from 2010 to 2013, he knows that a domination from one team and one driver is always doomed to come to an end, in the same way that Mercedes' domination ended in 2022. This is something that Andrea Stella believes will happen much sooner to Red Bull than it did to Mercedes, as the Woking-based squad has stated that they should never ever write Mercedes off when it comes to fair and square racing and being the sport's best team on the grid. Elaborating on this, Stella went on to say, "It's unclear if we're progressing faster than the other teams, especially compared to Red Bull, but let's not discount Mercedes. They've identified their areas of improvement. I think they're ready for a strong comeback. At the moment, there's no concrete evidence to suggest that the team ranking for next year is set. I expect some shifts." While this is a scenario that would definitely bring the interest and competitiveness back into the sport, something that even Verstappen hopes would happen, as he wants to race his colleagues harder at the front, it's not something that could be achieved that easily, unless Mercedes has been hiding a discovery they want to implement on their car very early in the upcoming season and catch everyone off guard. The reality is cruel. They've lost 18 months of developing their car in the wrong direction, and now they're paying the price for it. Even with the good-looking concept, their car just isn't fast enough and is bleeding out performance through increased drag and lowered downforce, thanks to the cockpit position as well as the height of the car. Gary Anderson, an F1 expert, believes that this is going to be the massive issue that Mercedes needs to overcome, as they have too many holes to fix but too little time to do it. According to Anderson, the deficit that Mercedes is currently in isn't one that is being fixed within a couple of months of a time frame, and the Silver Arrows need to stay realistic and aim for 2025 regarding their championship-winning season. Elaborating on this, Anderson went on to say, "You would expect a team of Mercedes' stature, experience and budget. They are there to win, not finish 5th and 7th, to improve their car during the season, but they have not. It is very unlikely that the team will have miraculous development over the winter." Looking at the current rate of progress within the top 5 teams, I would expect Mercedes to be at best the 4th fastest team at the start of next year. You have to prove to yourself that you understand your problems, and after 20 months and 38 races since these ground effect rules came into play, I am yet to see this. A team cannot just put all their hopes into the winter. Furthermore, Anderson went on to emphasise the importance of Mercedes copying the design of the other teams, a scenario that Hamilton has urged to be implemented ever since the no-pod side-pod design was brought in back in 2022, and a situation that would have put Mercedes in a much better window had they done it much earlier. The difference between the W14 and the RB19 is massive, and like Anderson said, the visual concept is completely different, and that's not something that could be fixed in a couple of months' time. Be that as it may, do you think that Mercedes have what it takes to fight for championships in 2024? Let us know in the comments below.